at this point in our project, we should have completed our wall, light switch, floor, and cut the door so that it opens. Okay, you should have completed your door on the back side as well. So now what we're focusing on is what's behind our door. And as I said in the last video, there's so many different options. You can have so much fun with this. Be thinking about what you want your viewer to experience, which we talked about in the last video. So in the last video, I also went ahead and sketched out my dragon and dragon eye. Okay, so obviously I've been working since then, but this shouldn't trip you up too much, because what I'm going to do here is I've laid the foundation for the finished watercolor painting. This isn't actually finished. Maybe it looks like it's finished to you, but I'm going to go back in and layer on some colors, do some highlights and some shadows to make this just a little bit more interesting. So I wanted to start by showing you this so you can take a look and begin laying your own colors if you're following along with me. But I also wanted to show you something that was really cool. So I've had so many different ideas about things that I wanted to draw behind my door. From the coronavirus coming through the door to the open mouth I showed you guys in class. There are just so many amazing ideas out there. So for my overachievers, I wanted to show you how you can actually include more than one painting in this. Okay, so if you followed along with me in the first place with the last tutorial, part 5, we measured out 4 inches and we marked it and we divided our paper in half. The next thing that you can do if you want to do another painting, you know, for fun, then what you can do is take a pair of scissors and carefully cut along the top edge of the page until you hit that pencil line. So I just took my scissors and I cut right along this line very neatly and very carefully. The next thing I did is I took my ruler, making sure it's clean so I'm not getting any smudges on my painting that I'm already working on, and I folded along the line so that I could potentially do another painting or drawing on this side so that I could have the option of having more than one thing behind my door when it opens. Okay, so if you're interested in that, I wanted to show you that because I've been having a lot of fun with this assignment. And again, if you're an overachiever, or let's say you do something you just don't like it and you want to explore making another one, that's a simple way to do that. Okay, so let's talk about the colors in this if you're following along with the tutorial. So basically what I did is I started with my eye and I went ahead in and painted the basic colors in first. So black, no water added really, just enough on the brush to pick up the paint, but you'll see how saturated that black is, which means there was very little water. A nice bright yellow, a yellow orange, and then red and brown mixed together to make kind of a burgundy color here. So you can see how I did the eye. Now remember that if I paint this black, I can't go right beside it and paint this yellow while this is wet. You always remember that in our watercolor paintings, we're being very thoughtful about where we're putting our paint so that we aren't getting bleeds or runs or blooms happening unless we intentionally want them to happen. So certainly sometimes they happen and it's not the end of the world, but if we can avoid them, we do our best to do that. And one way to do that is to jump around as we paint. So I painted this black, I let it dry before I painted the yellow, okay? Now, you'll notice that I have a number of different shades of gray on my dragon's face right now. All of these grays are simply created by taking the black watercolor paint and adding a lot of water. So this one, there was the most water. It's my lightest gray, so clearly the most water was added to that. And then for my next lightest gray color, I put a little bit more black into the water, and then so on and so forth. Now, when I painted each of these scales with my brush, I want you to recognize that I actually did paint the shape of the scale in. I would not suggest just painting over the entire thing with that gray. You're going to lose a little bit of the detail that's what makes this dragon really stand out, which are the scales. So I would advise against doing that, and I would actually take the time to paint each scale in. You may want to vary the values as I did, just to make it a little bit more interesting. And now today what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the process of painting this and layering on some colors. Probably not going to talk a whole lot during this video. I will probably speed it up. You can pause it, slow it down, do whatever you need to follow along. I will potentially mention the colors I'm mixing up and where I'm putting them, but that'll probably be the most talking I do in this video. So we're gonna get started here in just a second, layering on the very first color. But I wanna remind you, if you have been painting this and you've been working with a lot of blacks, start with clean water. Make sure your brushes are really clean. Okay, so I think the first color I'm gonna layer on today is kind of a more brownish orange. So I'm gonna mix a little bit of brown and orange together to create the next color I'm gonna layer on. I've got that mixed up, and I'm just gonna go ahead in here and start painting. I'm going to go with brown right along the top edge here. If you don't have a very thin brush, you could try going in with a brown colored pencil. I'm going to mix up a little bit darker orange by adding a little bit more brown to it. Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and move on to adding some details to the scales. So remember that, you know, it's really your choice whether you follow along with me. So maybe you want to change the color of the eye, or you want to change the color of the scales. All of that's fine, and I encourage you to explore that. You can still apply some of the things I'm doing here to your painting. So thinking about layering on colors, starting with your lightest to darkest. So let's go ahead and explore some of this. I'm going to go ahead and start putting some shadows in on these areas, and I'm going to think about where there might be a natural shadow on the dragon. So I'm going to go ahead and mix up a dark gray. It's not going to be jet black. I probably will do some straight up dark black at some point, but I'm not going to do that yet. So I mix my black with the water in a palette, and I work with it from there. Just kind of trying out the color to make sure it's not too dark to start. And I'm using very tiny brushes for now. So I guess I'm going to start by putting some shadows in. Okay, so I think for my very last color, I'm going to be using white watercolors, which you don't have in your paint palette if it's the one that came from the school. So you can leave it out. If you happen to have your own paint palette that does have white watercolors, then you can go ahead and try this out. So far, it's really not making much of a difference. Sometimes you have to layer it on in a couple applications, so we'll see. Okay, I think I'm probably done with this for now. I'll probably stay pretty close to this. So hopefully this helped you out, and I look forward to seeing what you're able to come up with a little bit of direction from this tutorial.